Grow Home was one of my favorite games released in 2015. What could be mistaken as an indie darling was actually a passion project developed by a team of 8 from Reflections, a studio acquired by Ubisoft in 2004. As far as I'm concerned, it was the best thing to come out of Ubisoft in years. That's why I was so excited for Grow Up, the sequel released just 1 year later. It certainly looked bigger and more expansive than Grow Home, which I thought could only be a good thing. After all, Grow Home was a pretty short game, and all I left wanting was more of it. So how does Grow Up fare in comparison to the original? Let's dive right in. Just like its predecessor, Grow Up wastes no time getting right into the action. The player takes control of the botanical utility droid, or BUD for short, searching the galaxy for undiscovered life forms when a meteor storm sends him and his ship crashing down to the surface of an uncharted planet. In order to leave this planet, Bud must recover the 12 missing pieces of his ship by running, jumping, climbing, and flying between the various regions and floating islands surrounding this planet. It's obvious that crafting a bigger world with more variety for the player to explore was a large focus of Grow Up, as the first new mechanic introduced comes in the form of a map screen, showcasing this new world hosted by Pod, the planetary observation droid. All of Bud's core abilities from Grow Home remain mostly unchanged in Grow Up, as he can clumsily run around on foot, jump, and climb obstacles just like he did before. What has changed results in an added emphasis on convenient travel by introducing new abilities that increase Bud's mobility while revitalizing old ones. Unlike Grow Home, where new abilities were granted upon collection of various amounts of crystals, Grow Up scatters them throughout the world in pods the player can locate on the map screen. Returning from Grow Up is a completely unaltered jetpack, along with the air brakes and glider sporting a fresh coat of paint. In Grow Home, these upgrades were disposable, meaning the player would have to recollect them if they crashed into an object or ran out of durability. In Grow Up, however, these abilities can be activated at any time as they are bound to the player when they are first obtained. Exclusive to Grow Up is the ball form that can save Bud from shattering upon impact at high velocities, as well as giving him a bit more speed on the ground, and the Floridex 3000, a device that allows Bud to scan various floriforms in the environment, generating seeds that can be placed just about anywhere. I had a lot of fun playing Grow Up. What stuck out to me wasn't the new additions to Bud's moveset, but the world the player was tasked with exploring. Where Grow Home placed the player on a small island that, for the most part, only scaled vertically, Grow Up gives the player an entire planet to explore, complete with various regions with unique flora and fauna, housing multiple star plants Bud uses to reach the floating islands dotted about the sky. It felt a whole lot bigger than Grow Home, even if it wasn't that much larger in actuality, and that made it so much fun to explore. I completed Grow Up 100%, nabbing every last crystal, ability, and skin, and I had a great time doing it. I thought I didn't have much to complain about, but then I played Grow Home again, and something became incredibly apparent to me. Almost every new design aspect of Grow Up is debatably inferior to Grow Home. The biggest distinction I can make between Grow Home and Grow Up is that Grow Home is a game about climbing, while Grow Up is a game about flying. Moving backwards a bit, let's take another look at Grow Home. Grow Home is all about moving vertically, as climbing is easily its most notable mechanic. Instead of simply holding the analog stick forward to climb obstacles like most other Ubisoft games, Grow Home introduces a much more engaging climbing mechanic in which the player moves each limb individually, grasping hold of objects with the L and R triggers. By rewarding the player's precision and rhythm, Reflections turned one of the most monotonous staple mechanics found in 3D games into the defining feature of their passion project. Every other design decision in the game is made with this mechanic in mind. Bud moves around very slippery on the ground, and because of the focus on vertical level design, new players tend to fall a lot, meaning they'll have to grab onto something on their way down, only to ascend the same as before. Falls don't always go over so smoothly though, which is where the leaf and flower come into play. Both slow your descent and allow the player to reach some locations without having to climb at all, however, they're very disposable, as one has a durability meter while the other crumbles upon impact, reducing their dependability to balance flying with climbing. Cut to Grow Up where progression makes climbing nearly obsolete. The Floridex 3000 introduced a new means of climbing early on, which was neat, but with the decision to make the air brakes and glider indestructible, there was very little reason to use it. When you collect enough crystals, a boost function is added to the glider, giving the player 100% control over flight. This means the player can reach any area without climbing, which is such a shame coming off of Grow Home. It wouldn't be so bad if the flying felt really good, and while it is fine, Grow Home has it beat not only there, but with so many small details as well. Gliding was so much easier to control in Grow Home, allowing the player to tilt the glider from a fixed point independent of the camera's position, like games have been doing for the last decade. Now that seems like a no-brainer, but instead of keeping things unchanged in the sequel, Grow Up's glider controls were tweaked, moving the glider's axis of rotation behind the camera. This means whenever the player turns the camera, the means of steering the glider changes completely. At the end of the day, it works fine, but it's still unnatural and needlessly complicated. It reveals this lack of polish within Grow Up, where basic actions feel worse to execute than they did in Grow Home. Moving just feels more sluggish overall, and even something as simple as plucking crystals from various objects doesn't feel as great as it used to, as they are retrieved after simply holding onto them for a short amount of time, as opposed to using your actual weight and control to forcefully pluck them from rocks like in Grow Home. These blunders highlight Grow Up's biggest underlying problem, its increased scale. There's so much horizontal space to move through that demands changes to Grow Home's core mechanics. While an increase in horizontal momentum feels good, vertical momentum has to increase with it, allowing the player to take what Grow Home set out to achieve for granted. In the process of replaying Grow Home and thinking hard about Grow Up, I think I've come to realize exactly what it is. It's a product of Ubisoft's sequelization strategy of making everything bigger, but not necessarily better, and that sucks. It's not a bad game, it's actually a pretty good game that I had a ton of fun playing, but it could have been so much better, and because of that, it becomes a difficult game to recommend. It's definitely worth giving a shot, but if you've already played its big brother, you may leave a bit disappointed.